Before we get started, do go ahead and subscribe to Farm Logic, because, well, this is one of those uncomfortable truths that modern gardening culture just doesn't like to confront. There is a weed almost every gardener learns to hate, pull, poison, and honestly, exhaust themselves fighting. Yet, for most of agricultural history, it was deliberately tolerated, even encouraged, because it feeds soil better than many modern inputs. When I stopped treating this plant as an enemy and started using it the way earlier farmers did, the soil changed faster than any bagged amendment I had ever tried. Now, this is not a defense of neglect. Rather, it's a lesson in historical land intelligence. So, why did this weed earn its reputation, and why is that reputation misleading? The plant in question is dandelion. Modern gardeners despise it because it spreads easily, survives mowing, and punches deep taproots through compacted ground. Lawns made uniform by modern aesthetics see it as rebellion. Ancient farmers saw something else entirely. That taproot was not a nuisance. It was a tool. Dandelion reaches far below the surface, pulling up calcium, potassium, iron, and trace minerals that shallow-rooted plants simply cannot access. When the plant dies or is cut back, those minerals are released into the topsoil. This is nutrient mining in its purest form, performed for free. How dandelion was used historically to improve poor soils. Historical farming records and oral traditions describe allowing deep-rooted bitter herbs to grow in fallow areas. Dandelion was among the most valued. Fields that had been exhausted by grain crops were left to grow mixed weeds, then cut and left in place. Over time, soil structure improved and fertility returned. I tested this by allowing dandelion to grow in compacted beds for one season. I cut the plants at ground level before seed set and left the leaves to decompose on the surface. Within just a few months, the soil was noticeably looser and darker where those roots had worked, you know. Why the taproot matters more than the leaves. Most people, well, they focus on the leaves because they're visible. But honestly, the real work happens underground. Dandelion taproots break through hardpan layers, creating channels that allow air, water and microbes to move deeper into the soil. When those roots decay, they leave behind permanent pathways that benefit future crops. And that's really something to appreciate. After removing mature dandelions, I planted shallow-rooted vegetables in the same spots. The roots followed the old taproot channels, reaching deeper moisture and, showing better drought resistance than plants elsewhere. How this weed feeds microbes better than many fertilizers. Modern fertilizers feed plants directly, but dandelion, well, it feeds the soil. Root exudates released during growth stimulate microbial populations. These microbes convert locked-up nutrients into plant-available forms. This slow biological process builds long-term fertility instead of short bursts of growth. I noticed increased earthworm activity in areas where dandelion had grown undisturbed. Worms followed the root channels and concentrated where decaying plant matter enriched the soil. Why pulling dandelions at the wrong time wastes their value? The mistake most gardeners make is pulling dandelions early, removing the entire root and exporting nutrients out of the system. Ancient practice was different. Plants were cut at soil level, allowing the root to decompose in place. This returned nutrients directly where they were needed. When I adopted this method, the soil benefited without allowing the plant to dominate. Timing really mattered, you know. Cutting before seed heads formed prevented spread while preserving the soil benefit. How to use dandelion deliberately without letting it take over. The key is, well, controlled tolerance. Allow dandelions to grow in selected areas, especially compacted or nutrient-poor zones. Cut them back before flowering. Leave the foliage as mulch. Do not dig out the roots. Rotate their presence seasonally, much like ancient fallow management. So, why did modern gardening culture reject this plant? Well, uniformity replaced function, you see. Lawns became symbols of order rather than productivity. Chemical weed control promised quick fixes, but honestly, it came at the cost of soil health. What ancient farmers managed with understanding, modern systems suppress with force. So, why does this knowledge matter now? Well, as soil degradation increases and inputs become, more expensive, plants that build soil for free really start to matter. Dandelion survives drought, compaction and neglect because it evolved to heal damaged ground. That resilience is honestly exactly what modern soils are lacking. Subscribe to Farm Logic for more historically grounded insights that, quite frankly, still outperform modern gardening trends. And do share this guide with anyone who reaches for herbicide at the first yellow flower. Sometimes the most powerful soil amendment is the one we've actually been taught to hate.